Hi, my name is Mike Mattock. I'm a counselor here on campus at Personal Development Counseling Services. I'd like to talk today about a method of responding to your emotions, even quite strong emotions, that promotes learning and personal growth by attending to the message that the emotions are trying to convey. This can oftentimes limit the magnitude and the duration of the pain that we feel in connection with our strong emotions or painful emotions. And also decrease the sense of helplessness that people often feel trying to deal with those emotions. This model is based on deep respect for our emotions and a refusal to simply struggle against our strong emotions just to be rid of them. I'll be presenting a model that basically will, and I'll walk through that model to kind of illustrate the process that I'm trying to talk about. Basically, when people experience strong emotions, we oftentimes make two missteps in relation to those emotions. The first is to attempt to push the emotions away, and that can be done in many ways. Being overly busy, too much TV, consuming alcohol, and probably 1,000 other ways of being busy for the purpose of pushing away our emotions. The problem with that tactic is that while we can push the emotions away, when we get done pushing, oftentimes those emotions just rebound, they come back, oftentimes even stronger than they were before. The second misstep that we often make related to our stronger, more painful emotions is to, in a sense, grab them in an attempt to figure out some way to be rid of them. That can take the form of anxious rumination. The difficulty with that tactic is that there's not a lot of new information that we're bringing to the situation, so there's not a lot of creative resolutions that typically come out of that, and we can often feel like our brain ends up in a ball, feeling more confused than we were when we started out. So the bad news, or the bad news I suppose, is that those methods aren't terribly effective. In a sense, it's good to realize that, because what that does is allow us to look at an alternative or a number of alternatives, one of which I'm going to be talking about. But not only does it not work very well, it's not terribly effective, it also sets up an internal struggle between our thinking and our emotions, or between our behavior and emotions, that causes us pain, and we don't tend to learn much through those two methods of trying to resolve our emotions. Basically, with those two strategies, although they look different, one is trying to push away the emotions, the other is, in a sense, grabbing them, thinking about it, but trying in that way to get rid of them. Although they appear different, they actually have the same goal in mind, which is to be rid of the emotions. The third alternative is to simply be aware of the emotion, and rather than looking on those emotions as an enemy to be gotten rid of, to look on those emotions as a messenger trying to tell us something that we need to learn. They're actually there to direct us toward learning about the changes we need to, about adaptive changes we need to make to improve our lives. So the basic method of being aware, if you can sort of illustrate in behavior, again, if we can try to push our painful emotions away. We can try to grab them in an effort to be rid of them, figure some solution to be rid of them, or we can open up to them, be aware of them, and listen to what the emotion is trying to tell us. That basic strategy can be very concretely practiced in the form of a question, that being, what is this emotion trying to tell me about needed changes in my behavior, in my thinking, or maybe even situations in my life? So that can be the basic question that we throw out, and we say, okay, I'm going to ask this question and I'm going to listen for an answer. You can conceptualize it in terms of you're asking your deeper self, you're asking life, you're asking however you want to frame it, but it's basically asking the question and then listening. I want to be really clear that that question and this tactic is not about thinking about it. We are using our brains, but not in the typical way as when we take something and kind of analyze it, what's the answer here. That's more the analytical type of thinking that we engage in a lot of times. This is using our brain in a very different way, more of an observational way, more of saying, okay, I'm going to open my mind to solutions that are maybe deeper, that I haven't realized, that when I listen, they can come to the surface. So if we listen to messages that come through our emotions, if we listen to or are able to take the emotion as a cue that I need to listen, or that we need to listen to what the emotions are trying to convey, we will oftentimes learn what we need to learn, and then we can put that learning into practice, which in turn then tends to decrease the feeling of anxiety or whatever feeling it is, and also brings about creative change in our life. I find it often very beneficial to list down the things that, the learning that happens through this process. So if a person were to list for themselves, and on the sheet accompanying this, it says bountiful harvest. The reason I labeled it that was because there is a tremendous amount that we can learn from emotions on a daily basis and through time, through the years. And if you take all of the things that we can learn from our emotions, it actually is a great harvest, a great amount of learning that can take place by respectfully attending to your emotions and learning what they're trying to tell you. So keeping a running track of that is helpful for a couple of reasons. One is we often forget what we learn sometimes, and so it's helpful if we run into another bump along the way to be able to go back to a record of what we've learned and say, okay, is there anything here that I've learned before and that I can utilize in this situation? So it can be a record, a journal that we can go back to and use as a resource. Secondly, keeping a track of the learning and the positive growth that has come from this process, what it can do is decrease a person's fear of anxiety or fear of powerful emotions. We oftentimes feel afraid of powerful emotions because the tactics or strategies we use to deal with them are ineffective, and then we flounder about and our emotions increase and become more painful. If we're able to respond in an adaptive way that decreases the emotion somewhat more rapidly, and also not only decrease, so we don't have these long periods of high intense emotions, we begin to learn that we do have a measure of control over our emotions, and that they have brought a great amount of learning to our lives. So the final thing I'd like to say is that how this can be used is that any time that you feel either strong emotions, or when you notice yourself pushing away strong emotions, or if being involved in anxious rumination, those three situations can be utilized as cues to move back into awareness, to ask the question, what is this trying to teach me? To not struggle against the emotions, but rather to be open to them, and to the learning that is trying to bring you.